What's up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of Bearded Wholesome and All Things Baltimore. This is season 5, episode 17, and I have a very special guest. He is a fellow Mount Man graduate of 2007, like myself. He is going into the Hall of Fame at Mount St. Joe this coming homecoming game weekend in the month of October. He is a former collegiate All American goalie for lacrosse, and he played for the Atlanta Blaze Major League Lacrosse team. Amongst many other things, my guest is Johnny Rodriguez, aka JRod. JRod, what's going on, my man?
What's good, Trigger? It's great to be on the show.
Absolutely, man.
All
It's good to
things
talk to you.
wholesome, bearded, and all things Baltimore.
Yes, that's me. I try to
And
keep everything safe for work in these parts.
I love it. I love it.
So you are on the West Coast, Johnny. I know that we have a little bit of a time difference. I want to thank you for coming on first and foremost. Um, you have been a very busy man. The last couple years, you have been coaching high school lacrosse, and you have brought two beautiful children into this world with your wife. How is dad life and married life for you on the western coast of the country?
Yeah, well, married life and dad life, they're two different worlds we live in. And I'm sure you can relate to that. Married life is going out on the weekends, Friday and Saturday, mucking it up at the local pubs and hanging out with your friends, waking up late on Saturday and Sundays, a little hungover, maybe watching a movie, ordering some DoorDash, and then maybe go on vacations, just as couples. And now it's married life where it's pure chaos all the
It's a
time.
good kind of chaos, though, isn't it?
It is awesome. It is, what do they call it? It's long days and short weeks. Time flies by, but at the same time, the days go that they take just everything out of you. So, but it's a blessing. It really is. So thank God every day for the family I have, my kids I have, the ability I have just to be a father in those boys' lives. And they're gonna grow up to be something special. We're kind of the first of our friend group out here to have kids, and now everybody's just like all of our friends are just having kids every couple of months, popping them out. And Jet gets to be the oldest. He gets to be either the good influence or the bad influence. So it's my job to make him the good influence.
Yeah, I kind of can relate. I was the first in my friend group to get married. First to go through the home buying process, and then the first to be a father out of the tight knit group from my youth. And it's definitely relatable now because everybody's just popping out kids left and right, and uh, you know some of my friends that waited till they were in their 30s to have children now have multiple kids, and they're it's good to see everybody prospering. Like you said, it is chaos, but it's a good kind of chaos at that. So here we are, man. We are 17 years post graduation,
Come on.
and it's crazy. And you were being inducted into the Mount St. Joe Hall of Fame for your accolades. Uh, what was it like when they told you that you were going to be an inductee?
Well, they told me last year, and I was supposed to be in last year's class, but they ended up, I forget why, but they they didn't hold the event last year, so everything kind of got pushed back to this year. So I kind of got the inkling that I was nominated and that it was going to happen sooner or later. But I mean, going back to our gym classes with those smelly reversibles that were like blue, like purple and white gym
Oh,
shirts,
they were awful.
they smelled so bad you can never get the adolescent teenager bo out of those things. But going back to those gym classes, what do they call it? Memorial Gym, right?
Memorial Gym.
And just seeing those banners hang, and I just remember being like, man, all our life was sports. Like nowadays, everybody plays one sport. At least out here, it's like it's very very rare to see a two-sport athlete. But I mean, every day after school, it wasn't like I was getting picked up. I was playing something after school, whether it was hockey, football, or lacrosse. So seeing those banners hang, and I remember to this day just being like, man, one day I want to send my kid here, and I want my kid to be able to see my name on that banner because that would be so cool. I wish my dad went here. I wish I was reading his name up there. Um, so it's not something that you expect. You certainly don't expect it, especially when you're at the school. But it was an incredible honor. Mount St. Joe, just like you, holds a very special place in my heart. That school shaped me to who I've become, the man I've become. Teachers there, Mr. Fitz, at the helm during our time. It just made such a good impression on me. I was coming out of a middle school where, um, yeah, I was getting in fights. I was just hanging out with some really good people, but also not some great people, and um, it certainly helped kept me focused and kind of understood. If you want to be in the 1%, you got to be different than 99% of the rest. So it really molded me, and like I said, it's got a special place in my heart. So it's a huge honor to be inducted into that Hall of Fame.
I can imagine, man. We didn't really. I don't know about you, and I know that was a tough school to be a part of because they took everything seriously. A lot of us didn't understand why things were so uptight and so structured, and it helped us as adults, conform to a lot of things, and it gave us the structure that we desperately needed, which is a great thing. But I came to appreciate St. Joe the later I got into my later 20s, my early 30s, to where now a lot of things were starting to make sense, and I was starting to piece things together even 10, 15 years later, and it's like, okay, I get it now. But one thing I will say is I went back to the school a couple years ago. Mr. Breen invited me over for career day, so I got to go over there and talk to some of the kids about what it was like to be a correctional officer, and I was lumped in with like the military and the law enforcement, and that school does not look like the school we went to, JRod. the, the
It always,
gym,
yeah, that was a
the
couple years. It was like 2 years after we left, wasn't it?
it was a little bit longer than that, but like the football field is a nice flat turf surface,
Oh yeah,
and the stands are very nice. You're not sitting on a hill on one side, and
bricks on
you
the
know,
other.
and then all of a sudden they have this brand new state of the art weightlifting facility, and it's like, oh, these kids that go there for this generation, they're not going to know what it's like to get asbestos poisoning in the dungeon,
Right? We
having
didn't
to
even have
lift.
supervisors. They'd be like, "Go lift." We'd be like, "All right." We just throw weights at each other. And
Yeah,
talk.
like that dungeon is where iron sharpened iron, and those kids are in a weight room that when I walked through it the first time I saw it, Johnny, I was like, this is a college weight room. This is a college facility right here. What are the we got we got
The York barbells with the rusted plates.
right, rusted plates, rusted barbells, bent weight bars, all that stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, this is crazy
yeah.
how different it is. But that's where the legends of our generation were made, and you happen to be one of them. Now you're going to be
That's grit,
immortalized.
man. That just produced so much grit. That weight room was just the best word to describe it. Was just gritty. Just
It was,
rusted cages that surrounded it. That was just like
and
outside of whatever they called the wrestling room. But
yeah,
I remember my first. I think it was my junior year, and we didn't have like structure like at modern day. We'll get into that later, but these kids come in as freshmen and they take like after school courses. You have to, and they teach them how to lift so that they can throw you into your like. We have a lacrosse class every day that meets, and all they do is strength and conditioning and speed, agility, quickness every other day. So they're just constantly getting trained and they're constantly lifting weights. My first time lifting weights was probably this time of the year, 19 years ago, like going into my junior year, and it was football. It was 2 days, and I remember seeing like I think Devin Lee, who was also kind of like scrawny like me at the time, and I remember he like put up what like 135 and he ripped it out like 10 times. I was like, all right, yeah, like I could probably do that 11 times, I bet. And I picked up the bar and it just smashed on my chest, and I just started screaming for help. And I remember from that moment on, I was like, okay, I got some work to do in this place. So very
yeah.
very vivid memory for me.
I remember just being in that cage, and I'm gonna liken it to one of the comments that Kirk Brooks left. He's watching the show right now. Shout out to Kirk. He's the linebackers coach at St. Joe right now for varsity, and it's like a jail weight room that we used to have. It was like prison rec, and all the windows were at the top of the ceilings, and I mean at the top of the walls, and you heard the cage door slam behind you, and then you went into this little rinky dink like makeshift office where John was doing e-stim and ice baths
What a
and
legend.
yes, and taping us up. And I remember spending many nights after practice in that area just getting treated, and it was it was crazy how it just really like I've been working in prison since we turned 21, Johnny, and it's literally like prison weights. Everything is likened to a prison weight yard. Some of them they got better stuff than we had.
Yep, yep, man. But we talked about grit, man. And shout out to Kirk. Great to see that name pop up on the screen. I just flashed over the comments and Kev. I didn't mention, but the brotherhood at St. Joe was something else too. I mentioned the teachers and fits and all that, but I mean the number one thing that makes you appreciate is just the fact that you can keep up with be able to keep up with kids, whether I talk to them weekly or I talk to them once a decade. It's we still have that brotherhood. It's still strong, similar to how you reached out to me.
Yeah,
So it's a special place, man, for sure.
it definitely is, and it's going to be cool to go over to the school. I'm gonna make it a point to get over there to hopefully we get a chance to meet up and all that. But it's going to be cool to see your name in the rafters and along with everybody else that's on those Hall of Fame banners because that does mean something. And um, after you left St. Joe, we all graduated in '07, and you eventually went on to Salisbury to hone your craft, and you became an All American there. And you eventually went on to play pro lacrosse. What was that whole process like going from, a
Yeah,
smaller college to
yeah.
the
So,
professional ranks?
well, first of all, I wanted to play football in college. It wasn't good enough, wasn't big enough, wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough. Obviously, I got into that already. And then the second thing I wanted to do, I wanted to play hockey in college, and that didn't work out. But it turns out that I was playing in the number one lacrosse conference in the country. I'd say I was above average player. But then I was waiting for all these offers to come in for football and hockey, and nothing was coming in that I liked. And all these schools for lacrosse were coming in, so I was like, oh, I guess I'm playing lacrosse in college, and turned out to be a constant in my life for the next 20 years. And it's kind of crazy how I went from. I ended up back in the day we could just like skip class, so I was like committed to go to Bucknell. This is how God works in mysterious ways. But I was committed to go to Bucknell, and we could just like skip class when we wanted to. We wouldn't really get in trouble for it. I would just go to the weight room or like go watch film in the locker room or just go get shot on the field. And it's just a different world we lived in back then. Um, and my grades plummeted, and it was a Patriot League school, so they didn't give out athletic scholarships. So I was just purely academic scholarship. And when that didn't work out, after they got my transcripts for my second semester, they're like, well, you're going to have to pay full price now. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. And Joe Mominier, if anybody remembers Joe, he was the goalie coach at St. Joe, and he had a nice career at Limestone, which is like the top D2 school you could go to at the time. And, I had all these other D1 that were like kind of like middle of the mall or like kind of like at the bottom half of Division One. And I wanted to win. I mean, we went to St. Joe where we were the gritty blue collar, unapologetic team that came out and put a beating on everybody, but didn't mean we always won. So I was like, I wanted to win. I was chasing a ring. In hockey, we lost 3 straight years in the state championship game in overtime in the last 0.3 seconds left in the regulation, and then in overtime our senior year. So I was just fed up with that. I was like, I need to win a championship. So I went to Limestone for a year. I ended up being a starting goalie and a team captain my freshman year. It seemed to be a perfect situation. I just didn't like the school. I didn't like the area. So I decided I'll transfer to Salisbury. I can play hockey and I can play lacrosse there. If lacrosse doesn't work out, I can play hockey and just enjoy my time in college. And I turned out I was in the right place, right time. I got the starting spot on the lacrosse team right away. I was playing hockey. I was a 2-sport athlete at Salisbury, and lacrosse just when I stopped focusing on 3 sports, focused on one sport, hockey. I just played for fun. It was a club team. But I started getting really competitive, really good, and taking that leadership role of like, okay, this is our team. This is kind of my team, and let's make the most of the situation. And I got it. We had a championship run my second year there. Lost in the championship to a team called Tufts University, who went on to be Salisbury competitor, the top two Division three schools in the country for the last 15 years probably. We lost to them 9-6, and that just I said I'm 0 for 4 in championship games. Well, I'm gonna make it a guarantee that we win this next one, and we ended up winning the next one like 19-6. I think we won my senior year, and so I was ready to take a desk job after that. I had a nice connection back in Baltimore, and it was a sales gig, and I was kind of like, I'll do this, but I'm not like in love with doing it. Like I'm gonna be behind a desk my whole life, and then I got drafted into the MLL, and I spent 7 years playing professional lacrosse, traveling the country, traveling the world, really. I mean, I was in several different countries, just sharing the game, bringing the game, doing clinics in other countries, being an ambassador of the sport. And it was incredible. It kind of led me to, when I got drafted, it was, you can live anywhere. You're going to make $600 a game and you'll play 12 games a year. So it's not a lot of money, but you can live anywhere and we'll fly you around. Nowadays, minimum salary is like 60 or 70K. But back then it was a lot different. So, being an athlete growing up, my dream is let's be a pro athlete. I don't know if you play the game of life. I always wanted that professional athlete card, pull that card and make a solid salary, but only half of that worked out. I was a professional athlete, but I made a terrible salary. So I paired it with coaching. I got into coaching right away just to kind of supplement the income and pay rent. I was like demanding kids do lessons with me. Like, you need to do a lesson with me. I wouldn't tell them this, but I have rent coming up this weekend. I owe rent on Monday. We need to do like 4 lessons today. And so I was just barely, making enough to pay rent and hang out and go to the bars and meet people. Cause I moved out with just me and my dog. I didn't know anybody. And that was part of the decision to move to California, was let's start fresh and let's start new and kind of leave whatever name I had for myself at Salisbury behind and start my career somewhere else and network and do things like that. But I ended up staying with lacrosse. I just, once I started playing and I started coaching, I started falling in love with just like the impact you can make on kids and, how much they idolize you. So like all of a sudden you go from just being a 22, 23-year-old guy that's playing professional lacrosse, partying every weekend, to, okay, I need to check myself because these kids are watching my every step. So got really into coaching, and that's kind of what ended my playing career, because I couldn't really fully commit to being a coach while I was still playing. I was having to leave on Fridays, and games are usually on Fridays, and missing Saturdays, and coming back Monday just beat up and not wanting to really be present in anybody's life other than my own on my bed. Got into, after my first year, ironically, I lost in the state championship game my first year as an assistant coach. And then I said, I got to get the hell out of Pacific Beach. It's too much party. It's like Ocean City, but in San Diego.
Oh, wow.
So if you can imagine, it's like every night you have to find an excuse not to go out. So I said, I got to move out of here if I'm going to do this. So I moved up to Orange County. I got a head job at a public school for a couple of years. And then the Mater Dei spot. Mater Dei was a school that I remembered from St. Joe. I remember our basketball team. I was talking to Dino about this a couple weeks ago about, who is this Mater Dei school? Like, we're the number 5 basketball team in the country, and they're number 1 in not just basketball, but football and baseball and soccer. And how is that possible? And so I always knew about Mater Dei. And when that job opened up, unfortunately, the lacrosse team was the worst sport at the school. They were absolutely terrible. My public school would beat up on them at the time. But it opened up, and I was just like, I want to be a part of something great. Mater Dei's got an incredible name. It's obviously got an incredible athletic department. And, if I can get some support from them and keep doing my thing and bring some other solid coaches around, I think we can make a run at this. And it took us a little while, but I mean, after I moved, I got to start a new rec program, and I started a new club program. So then I started getting into like the lacrosse business side of things and running tournaments and running events. But it was all about making Mater Dei a powerhouse. And it was, I think, my fifth or sixth year where we finally cracked the top 25 in the country. We're the number one team in the West, in the whole West region of the country, which going
That's
from
amazing.
the 300 and something ranked team in California to top 25 in the country was a very special moment for me and the entire program and all the coaches that were a part of that journey with me. Um, but and then that being a head coach at a program like that, it's been 10 years. It's been over 10 years since I signed my contract. I was the youngest head coach ever to sign a contract at the school.
25 years old, yeah.
Yeah, I was 25. And so that it just made it iron sharpens iron, like you had said before. I blueprinted my program over Coach Rollinson, who's the head football coach and an absolute legend. But I also pulled things from the basketball team, and all the coaches over there are some of the best coaches in the country. So get to coach with them it's constantly iron sharpens iron. It's okay. They're doing this, and I need to be doing that because that's working for them. And that's how we got to be so good so quick. And then, like I said, I was full time lacrosse. We have like 3 different clubs. I have an event company, a goalie training company that we still have going on. A head coach, no longer a head coach anymore. I had to step down with the recent news that I got about a year ago. But it's an incredible journey. I never thought I'd be still in lacrosse this long after high school. I mean, I never thought I'd be playing lacrosse after high school, and to be doing it full time I look back at everything I've done in my life, and it's all been centered around lacrosse. But at the same time, been able to impact, and I've been impacted by so many people. And just to get invites to weddings and birthday parties and graduation parties, and seeing these kids go from high school kids to now married with children is insane to me. I mean, I know I'm 35, but it doesn't feel like I'm 35.
No, I hear you. I want to ask you though about the coaching aspect. You've played the game all your life. You played at every level you can possibly play. You've reached the pinnacle, like you said, of being a professional athlete, and you'll forever have that title, and you'll forever be recognized by Major League Lacrosse as being a pro goalie. How difficult was it for you to turn off your mentality as a player and transition that into coaching kids? Because not every kid is going to be the caliber of what you were and what you played with and against. How did you temper those expectations and kind of formulate a way of coaching?
Yes, it's tough. Well, first of all, being on a stage like that, it's lacrosse. It's not. I'm not playing in the NFL. So like you're big, but you're big in a small pond. So, it's you have to be realistic about it. It's a lot of professional lacrosse guys that do really well in pro lacrosse have a tough time retiring because it's like there's not a lot to fall back on. Once you're done playing, you're kind of forgotten about. Nobody knows you anymore, and that's never what it was really about for me. I mean, it was cool at the beginning just to go from a Division III school to be a professional lacrosse goalie. Like that was awesome. But at the same time, there's bigger pictures, and you know, I always ask God, like, what, please direct me to help me find my purpose for you in this world. And so that was one of the things that just made it natural for me. It was like, okay, like playing's cool and all, and like I can sign a couple autographs here and there, but at the same time, like I see that kid once, I'll see that kid once or twice, maybe 3 times in a season that, hangs out after the game to talk to me, whatever. But I get to see these kids every single day that I can, go back to not making them just great lacrosse players, but great people. And that's one of the things when people ask me, how did Mater Dei get so good? It's character. We were character builders. We can call us lacrosse coaches, but our main focus was build the character of the men that we coached. So it was natural. It was natural for me. And that's why it made it such an easy, that and a blown out back made it really easy for me to step down from playing pro lacrosse.
I get it. It's amazing that you had a chance to, you know, continue your legacy and put teach what you have between your ears in the next couple of generations of lacrosse players. Um, does modern day ever give you any type of feeling that St. Joe gave you, like when you think back to your years there?
It is, but it's different. It's different. It's a co-ed school, but I'll tell you what. When I walked through the building at Modern Day, it was a long interview process. It was like a 4 hour interview, and then the follow up interview was like 6 hours, and it was just talking to people in different departments, and like they really vetted us out. But when people like, why did I take the job? People ask me all the time because I went from a really good public school to a nobody school, and granted in lacrosse, right? It was a big name in the athletic world, but in lacrosse they were terrible. And and I still to this day, I mean, the guy that got me to do the interview was a St. Joe alum, and he was a mentor of mine out here.
Wow.
And he's 40 years older than me. You know, he's maybe 30 years older than me. But um, and so I walked the halls, and it was gritty. It's not what I had expected. It wasn't like all this like high technology and like like cutting edge. It wasn't like it was just made a couple of years ago. Like this thing's been around since the 50s, and they've kept the character of the school within its walls. So walking, people ask me, it's like it reminded me of St. Joe. Like I tell people that I remember that to this day, walking and being like, I want to be done coaching because I had another job in big data, which probably would have worked out well for me financially. But I took this interview. I was like, you know what? This reminds me of St. Joe. I want this. I think God's telling me to keep pushing this direction, and that's what did it for me. But it's in terms of to go back to your question, when it's the brotherhood is different when you don't have girls distracting you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You really appreciate the relationships that you have, and you understand what a real relationship is. You know, and not just in high school everybody's like high school boys, teenage boys. You kidding me? Like throw some girls in the mix, and there's gonna be some skulls that hit each other pretty hard, just
Yeah.
because you're gonna make mistakes and you're gonna screw some people over, but because you don't really get to focus on that brotherhood and just respecting a person as you would like to be treated more than when you're just with the boys.
And one thing I will say about that, not to go off topic, but going to an all boys school, Johnny, you learn confrontation. You learn problem solving with confrontation as opposed to sidestepping. You have to address any issue
Learn how to
that
be a
comes your
man.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you learn how to be a man.
and the teachers are mostly men, so they let you hash out whatever it is you need to hash out as long as it doesn't get physical, which I had a problem uh, with my last year or so. I'm not going to really go into specifics, but yeah, I know you mentioned that you just stepped down, and you received news last year that you were diagnosed with ALS, and you have had a literal army behind you ever since your diagnosis, and you were going about this in the best way that you possibly can. I know that's devastating, and I can never quantify with words what that might be like for you, but you have been fighting this thing as best as you can. How is everything going on that front? I know you're trying different methods, I know you're trying different treatments. How is that going for you?
Yeah, so it's incredibly well. I'm incredibly grateful. I thank God every day for how well I'm doing. The ALS community is a very tight knit community because there's not a lot of us, and we like to follow each other and see how each other's doing. Granted, it's tough sometimes because it's such a progressive disease, and it can be fatal so quickly. I've had symptoms for over 2 years now. I got diagnosed in October of last year, but I spent 12 months I got 12 different MRIs and brain scans done to try to find a pinched nerve or try to figure out why I wasn't able to lift the same weight over my shoulders as I was. I was still working out, and it was like, I know I'm getting older, but like every week I'm losing like 10 pounds in my shoulder press. What's going on? Like I'm losing a couple of reps every single time. And, So that was a tough process. And then finally the insurance cut me off and they're like, you were done. You can't do MRIs anymore. Like, all right, well, what do I do now, doc? And he's like, go see a neurologist. Go try to find something out from a neurologist. And I went to go see a neurologist in August of last year, right around this time. And he, like, within like 30 seconds of he had me take my shirt off and he looked at my body and I had muscle fasciculations, like little twitches of the muscle, like slow twitch muscles. Just that's you can probably see it if you look closer at my shoulders, but within 30 seconds, it's like, you have ALS. And they're so black and white. They don't, like, it's not like they do this for a living. They tell people this stuff all the time. But to me, it was like, the fuck do you mean I have ALS? You know what I mean? Like, I just had a kid. My wife we just found out we're having another kid. I can't have, I'm 35. I'm in shape. I'm healthy. And so it was, but I had to get, like, I didn't believe it. I was like, okay, well, that's your opinion. I'll get tested. And I had to wait 2 months to get tested. And from that point on, it was like out of sight, out of mind. I didn't have it. I didn't think I had it. And then I got tested, and the docs 2 months later in October was like, hey, look, this is what you're going to see when we run this test. If you have ALS, this is what you'll see. If you don't have it, this is what you'll see. And it lit up like a freaking, like a starry night with all the little the screen that was just going crazy. And I looked at him and he just said, like, just gave me one of those. And I was 2 weeks of just hell, man. It was, it was just to tell my wife, like, I didn't have the balls to tell my wife for the longest time because I didn't know how, like, we're married. We have a kid and we're just finding out we have another kid. How do I tell her that I'm supposed to die in 3 years? You know what I mean? And so it was, and then all these things flash through your head, like, who's going to be there? Like, who's going to teach my kids life's toughest lessons? Who's going to be there? Am I going to be at their graduation? Am I going to meet their first girlfriend? Am I going to be there to support them through sports and athletics? And, just everything runs through your mind. As a father, I'm sure you can imagine, because it's like, it's just clear as day. It's 2 to 3 years is life expectancy for ALS. And so I was trying to be strong for everybody, my wife, my friends, my family, my sister, my parents, like, but inside I was crumbling. Like, it was just hard to go to sleep at night. Like, my life's just beginning. This life is amazing. And it's just starting, I'm becoming a father and I'm loving this job. Like, I'm loving this life. And now it's being taken away from me. And I was frustrated with everybody and short tempered. And finally, just one day, and again, this is something that I think if I didn't have St. Joe, I wouldn't have had this to lean on as quickly as I did. But I went into a church. I had an appointment to go somewhere, a meeting, and I just said, screw this meeting. I can't make it. I just went into a church, the closest church nearby, and I just cried my eyes out for like 3 hours. And I just needed to cry. Like, as I just needed to let things go. And I was asking God, I was just like, I need strength. I don't know how to carry on. Like, I don't know how to keep going with this end line that's in front of me. And that it's crazy. Like, it's like building muscle. Like, you got to break it down and grow it back stronger. And I finally broke down and the Lord gave me strength, and then I was like, okay, I now I need hope. I need to be strong. And then I realized, like, I start to assemble my team, like, because there's doctors they don't have anything for you. So it's like, okay, like, we'll track you every 4 months, every 3 months, you'll come in and we'll let you know how you're doing. I was like, what can I do to live longer? He's like, nothing. I'm like, okay.
That's
thanks.
very grim.
Yeah, it's grim. And they do, like, the doctor's defense, like, they're being honest with me.
That's their job at the end of the day.
They don't have anything to share with me. So I just said, okay, you know what? I'm going to put my body in the best position to heal. I started reading books about, the power of the mind, and just, if you believe it and you do everything in your power, physically, mentally, and emotionally, to believe that and to reinforce that, then it's going to happen. So I stopped focusing on statistics. I stopped focusing on outcomes. I stopped thinking about all the things that haunted me with my kids and not being there for them. And I just started thinking about, what can I do today, the present? That's all we got, right? Like, and I just started focusing on, let's win the day. Let's start stacking days. One of my college buddies said, mom just went through cancer, and he was like, just you're going to have bad days, but try to stack good ones. And so I said, I love that. And the name of the game now is win the day. And every day that's my job is this disease wants to beat me and I want to beat it. I train my whole life in competition. I'm going to give this thing hell every single day. And then I'm going to live a balanced life, enjoy my family, not work too hard, and do the things that I need to do to compete, but also live a happy life. And right now I have doctors, they have question marks over their head. They just don't understand what I'm doing. I have scientists following me around, researchers every day this month, every single day, sometimes twice a day. They test me to figure out all these things I'm doing, why I'm doing so well. I have ALS patients reaching out to me all the time, like, hey, what are you doing? Can you what supplements are you on? What exercises do you do? Like, I did 6 months ago, Trig, I couldn't drink this water bottle with my right hand and lift it over to my mouth. I had to guide it with my left hand. And my right arm was completely atrophied where you couldn't see anything. And it's coming back. My muscle tone is coming back.
Wow.
One of the first things I did was I found this doctor he's from Duke. His name's Dr. Bedlock, and he's been studying these reversals. And so he's got all these case studies on these reversals and what the supplements they were taking, the lifestyles they lived. And I just took all that and I just took all the common themes from every single one of those 51 people. And I kind of created my own supplement regimen, if you will. And then, God, like I said, God was like putting people, the strength coach at Modern Day had just resigned to become a full-time Qigong master. So he's like, he's my therapist in a way, but he's constantly moving energy in me. And I think that's where I get so much of my mental fortitude from, and my strength of just not caring about tomorrow, just worrying about today. I get that from him. It also helps with reduce the vesiculations in my body. I leave there feeling like I'm in so much more peace than I was going in. And I do that a couple times a week. Today was like a 9-hour day, and I'll quickly run you through it. It started at 8 o'clock this morning. It started with a 2.5, 3 hour long drip of all different types of vitamins, peptides, supplements. I get out of there. I come home. I had a quick meeting for my ALS foundation, and then I had to appease these researchers to do their little study on me. And then right after that, I sprinted up to Ascent, which is like a wellness clinic where I did nerve regeneration. Basically, they take these little electrodes and they shock different parts of my muscles to stimulate them because they can't stimulate themselves anymore. And I know that's been great because this finger right here, this is about as straight as I could have got my finger 2 or 3 months ago. And now I'm fully able to put it back up again.
Wow.
And nobody really knows about this stuff. I got connected through a Modern Day family that said, hey, I go here. You should check this place out. I'll give you a free month. So I said, all right, I'll go thank you. I'll go check that out. And I found a specialist there who also, they had me wearing this device that I wear pretty much all day long. It's electrodes and it constantly charges my cells. So it's a biofeedback. It's like a TENS machine. If you're probably familiar with the TENS machine, but it reads what my body needs and then it shoots me whatever I need. Then I go to this nerve regeneration, which is like a reprogramming of the cells. And then I sit in this CVAC pod, which is like a hyperbaric chamber, but it's the reverse. You go up instead of down, and it sends you up to like 30,000 feet, and it drops you down to 0. And basically, it's just like it's like an air pump for your blood, and it's strengthening all the mitochondria, which is like the powerhouse of the cell. I learned that at SHO. And then I did Pilates. I came here straight from Pilates. It's like the one exercise because I can't lift weights because the muscle won't regrow. It won't come back as fast. So it tears it down. If I lift weights, I'll be weak for like a 2-week period before I can strengthen my muscles again. So I have to just focus on body movements. And then, so that's just, that's today, and tomorrow we'll bring new adventures and new things, but those are some of the main things that I do. I sauna and I ice bath every day too. So, I mean, it's like a lifestyle. It's not something I look at like, oh, I got to do another day of treatment.
It's survival.
It's survival, and it's the motivation is waking up and, you know, to a crying baby and being able to spend time with him and appreciate our the relationship I have with my wife, and kissing those kids goodbye every night. Like that's all I need. I mean, I get to work half the hours I used to, and I have these massive medical bills and that come in, but so I can't just quit working. But I think at the same time, work keeps me like from just being a full time treatment guy. You know what I mean? Just nonstop.
I hear you.
It kind of lets me live a normal life at times too. So I do enjoy that. But like I said, incredibly grateful to really appreciate, you know, the things in life. You have to really understand how fragile life is.
Absolutely, Johnny. What I'm curious, when you started this regiment and you formulated your plan for a day by day basis, what were your doctors saying to you when they know for a fact that the disease does this in this amount of time? You should be here. You should be having these side effects. You should be feeling like this physically. When you're defying those odds, what is your feedback from the professionals that initially diagnosed you?
I get so fired up for these. I do. I'm on a trial, so I do once a month. I do testing for the trial, but I do the testing with like that's just like that's like a student that's in like med school that's like administering these things. But when I go see the doctor every quarter, which I go see him on Thursday, this will be the fourth time in a row I'm gonna have improvements from the test prior, and they're very like I like my doctor a lot. The doctor that diagnosed me, I have a good relationship with him. When I tell him about these treatments, he's like, you can do that. There's no studies that is going to show that is actually helping you. I know it's helping me, and I don't need him to tell me that, but I also know like he's on my team. He wants me to fight through this. So when I go in, I'm like, doc, so like, you know, whatever, like I score, and I'm like, but you know, I got a 75 this time. I had a 68 last time. So is that an improvement? He's like,
don't hit him with numbers, Johnny.
Yeah, he's like, you're maintaining. I'm like, but if maintaining would be if I had a 68, but I'm obviously improving a little bit every time I come in. So that's kind of like another little piece of motivation. It's like, you know, you practice, you go through 2-a-days with football and you get to play your first game. It's like, you know, you finally get to test yourself and show all the work you've been putting in. So they're a little scary because, you know, you still have to meet with people and they tell you like, okay, like, you know, you're going to need a wheelchair soon. You gotta bank your voice, before you lose it. And it's like, okay, like we just bought a 2-story house, like that's how like mentally strong I am about focusing on today. If I buy a 1-story house because I am expecting to not be able to walk in a couple years, then that's what's going to freaking happen. I bought a 2-story house. So I know like, I'm not worried about not walking. If I get to that point, we can figure something out, you know, but I'm not going to change my life because of what doctors are telling me are going to happen to me.
I totally get it. So, not totally pivoting. What is the foundation that you're working on?
So so I knew I wanted to start a foundation, like I just going back to God's purpose, right? Like I'm always like, what do you need from me, and how can I serve you the best way possible? And it's I didn't want to start it right away because I didn't know, like I was still learning the disease. I didn't want to just jump right into it. So I waited. And I had this other this very, very well-known ALS foundation, Augie's Quest, reach out. Augie Nieto had ALS. He was the founder of Life Fitness, all like the cardio equipment in the gyms in the 80s and 90s. And he lives in Newport Beach, so lived. He had 17-year fight with it. And like 90% of patients die within the first 3 to 5 years. And this guy lives 17. And they've raised almost $100 million in the last 2 decades for ALS research. They have their own research facility in Boston that they completely fund. And so a bunch of people said, you should reach out to this Foundation. And so I did. And I met with them, and they're like, "We love your story. Would you be willing to share it at a little fitness convention that we will have at the Grammy Museum?" And I was like, this is. I'm not going to turn something down. I'm not going to audible out of God's plan for me. Like, yeah, of course I'll do it. And I spoke, and it was the first time, kind of as a coach, you get a lot of public speaking reps, but you never really speak about your life and your family like that. And so I wasn't sure what I was going to expect. And me and my wife wrote some notes down as we were driving up to LA. It was about an hour drive, and I wrote my speech there, and I went up and I read it, and it was so well received, and so many of the fitness guys, and I realized how they cared. I thought they were just there to empty their pockets out, and have a tax write-off, but they were very adamant and passionate about finding a cure for this thing. And they've spent the last 20 years trying to help Augie find one. So after that night, I had a call with Augie's Quest people the next day, and I felt a lot of synergy there. I felt like it was really good. And they said, "We felt the same. Would you be willing to do this full time for us?" And kind of travel around the country and do these little speaking roles. And I said, I'd love to. And then so that's kind of evolved. But at the same time, I said, I'd love to, but I also want to start my own one day. And they said, we'll support you through that. So after living this thing for a year, everybody's asking me, how can we help? How can we help? And as a coach, I'm like, I'm always looking for causes to play, to show my kids like what life's all about and not what lacrosse is all about, and play for something bigger than just themselves or their team or the game. And so Athletes versus ALS came out. It was a name that I thought of. I was like, I wanted to include not just lacrosse players, I wanted to include all athletes. And so you see the A, the L, and the S in athletes, I thought fit pretty well. And it's a collaborative effort, it's a collaborative approach. ALS is very prominent in athletes, and nobody knows why. But it might be concussions, it might be strain on the body. We don't know, but there's more in football and contact sports than there are in anything else. And you think neurological disorder, you think brain. So we're gonna, the hope is, I can't put anything in stone right now, but very soon there will be a research study to study the impact concussions have on the ALS community.
Wow.
And so Athletes versus ALS is going to help fund that. And the mission for Athletes versus ALS, it's I haven't buttoned it up yet, but I mean, the big picture is we want to be the best well-known cause to support in high school and collegiate sports.
And you have been making your rounds, my man. I have been following you on social media. You are everywhere in California. Every major professional sports team in your immediate area, the San Francisco 49ers, the San Diego Padres, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Los Angeles Angels, they've all had you come out and interact with the athletes and support your cause. What was that like, being noticed by some high profile organization?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, obviously, like, I'd rather throw the first pitch because I won the lottery, but at the same time, it's a way for me to, one, get this out there, get more awareness for this disease out there, because if you think about it, we've been so many millions of dollars have been spent on this for so many years. Like, we can come up with Teslas, but we can't figure out how to freaking stop ALS. You know what I mean? And find a cure for ALS. So we're like, everybody in the community is like, we're so close. We need more money. We're underfunded because no big pharmaceutical companies, they're not going to invest a ton of money in it because so few people have ALS that it's just not going to be a good return for them. So this is all private funded. 90% of it's private funded research that are raised through foundations. So, when I get on a stage like that, like I was on CBS, and I was on a couple news stations, and it's like, cool. Like, that's a cool platform, it's to be on and people see it, but like, what am I going to promote? So I wanted to come up with this sooner rather than later, so that when these things happen, I have something to stand on. And being able to hang out with these athletes, and I threw the first pitch of the Dodgers game on Lou Gehrig's day. I had my whole family was out here. Cruz was just born; he was like 5 days old, and then I got to meet a lot of those guys, and super cool. Like, I mean, just like you're on the same level. It's not like you're starstruck anymore, because either I'm a grown man, or the
Right.
fact that I'm just not there to be a fan. I'm there to help the ALS community out. So it's great when you get them on that level. They're down to earth people. I chopped it up with Manny Machado at the Angels game. The Padres were playing the Angels, and he was signing autographs. He said, and I was on the field. It's like, yo, Manny, when you get a second, I got a story for you. And he looks back like, what the hell you got to say to me? And I was like, let's take it back. You were playing for the Salisbury Shorebirds. It's 2010, Thursday night. We're at Brew River. You sat next to one of my buddy's girlfriends, and I told you I didn't appreciate that. And he goes, no way, that was you. And he remembered the whole thing. We got into a pushing and shoving match, and he told me that he'd be a millionaire before I graduated college. And I said, congrats on making that happen. I'm proud of you. And he said, here, take. And then he went to batting practice. And after batting practice, he called me back over. He was like, here, take these as a peace offering. I don't want any more beef with you. And he dapped me up, and we took a picture together. But like, it's great being able to meet the athletes and all, but being able to be there for them, or have something else other than just me being a fan to say, look, this is what I'm supporting. This is what I'm pushing. And if I could have your support, that'd mean a lot to us. And I was just with the 49ers, with the Lynch family, amazing family, very, very close knit, tight group. It's a family affair every time they have a practice out there. With the siblings and the aunts and uncles and his wife Linda. I'm meeting with her tomorrow to see how she can help, and just get it. This thing is brand new. It's like 6 months old, and I mean we're not chasing single high schools at a time. We're chasing conferences, and we're chasing leagues, and we're trying to get on my calls, my cleats in the NFL. Keep an eye out. I think there's a good shot you see us on some football players' foot this October. So
That's incredible, man. Hey, I know that you're going to put your all into it, and I'm fully behind the movement that you're creating, and I'm proud of you, man. I think it's amazing that you have gotten the awareness for it in such a short amount of time that you've been doing it. All the exposure on TV, social media. You got a great support system, Johnny. And I know that you got to get back to your family, and I've had you for about an hour now. If you can hang around post show for a minute or two, but
of course,
before I let you go, Johnny, let everybody know where they can find you on social media, where they can find your athletes for ALS versus ALS. Let everybody know where they can follow along your journey.
JRod is my personal. And then the Athletes versus ALS, the easiest way to follow along is through social media, Athletes versus ALS, all one word.
There you have it, folks. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Johnny, it was so great to catch up with you. We'll chat a little bit in post show, but that is a wrap, folks. This show has been brought to you by Great Eights Memorabilia in Parkville, Maryland, along with Driving to the Top Productions. Johnny, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you, Trigger, and shout out to all the St. Joe boys. Go Gales, baby.